Hey there! Just a quick video to show you some work I've been doing with buffalo horn and making scales for Swiss Army knives. I picked up a piece of Asian water buffalo horn at the Blade Show earlier this summer, and the first thing I did with it was I made some scales for this modern climber. I was really happy with the way it came out. I've already done a video on this, so I won't spend any more time on it. But I was recently given a restoration problem on an old model 1937, I guess you would call it a tourist, 84 millimeter version of the Standard or the Spartan. So an old vintage model 1937 Victorinox officer's knife. But the problem with it, like the problem with so many model 1937s, is that the scales were ruined. They were cracked all the way through, front and back. In addition to the large cracks all the way through, there were hairline fractures all through it. So the scale was shattered and was just not repairable. I could not save it. So I was sort of inspired by the old Swiss Army knives that often have buffalo horn scales. I mean, if you don't see them with the Celador, they usually have buffalo horn. So I went back and got the remaining amount of my Asian water buffalo horn, and I made scales for them. And you'll see that this is kind of the modern take because there are not exposed rivets. In order to maintain the exposed rivets, I would have had to have drilled out the old pins, completely torn the knife down, put in new rod stock, new pin stock, rebuilt the knife, drilled through the scales, peened those pins out to the scales, and ground the whole thing flush. There really wasn't anything wrong with the knife mechanically, so I didn't want to go to all that trouble, and I really don't have the capacity to do that anyway. So what I did was I ground those tall pins down until they were within about 1 millimeter of the liner. Then I peened them out to the liner, and now I had them very close to the liner, was able to just drill about 1/3 of the way through the back of these scales so they would fit over very flushly. And these scales were measured and cut and shaped off of the knife. So I'm pretty proud of that because now on the knife they are a pretty exact fit. And I wanted to show you this front scale in particular because it's the most complicated scale I've ever worked on. First of all, notice how much more complicated or elaborate the scale is on a model 1937 than it is on a modern Victorinox knife. So here you just have basically, you know, a round, an oval piece, you know, rounded corners, oval piece, no cutouts. On this one you have 5 different cutout operations, and I'll show you what those are. The first one is you have to have a slot for the old style can opener to close. If you didn't have that slot, it wouldn't close. And if you didn't have this circular cutout around the slot, you couldn't get your thumb in there to get a hold of it. The next cutout is for the old exposed awl, and a cutout for the thumb to catch the edge of that. And then finally there's the cutout all the way through the scale here so you can reach the nail nick of the screwdriver cap lifter. All that had to be done before the edges were rounded. On the back we just have a cutout for the corkscrew, but also a cutout for the thumb to get to the corkscrew. I sanded this with a variety of different sandpaper grits. I think I started with 600 and I worked my way all the way up to 3000. And then I put it to a cotton buffing wheel with white buffing compound. It gives it a very smooth glass-like appearance. Buffalo horn is a very neat thing to work with. It's very hard. It turns out to be pretty hard. If I had 2 pieces, I'd show you. You clink them together, they sound like china. But it's very stinky to work with. It puts off a lot of fine dust, and it smells like someone's grinding their fingernails down or something. It's a little unpleasant, but it's worth it. When you get done, the results are really nice. I think this piece has got some good character. It's mostly kind of this dark, kind of brown, but we've got some really cool flash here of cream at the top. So I just want to show you that. It's the way I repaired a very valuable vintage 1937 Victorinox officer's knife. You know, you don't just discard a model 1937. You got to do something with it. And I believe that what I did was the best approach for this knife. All right, thanks for watching, and have fun collecting.